coming back to being seen, this is the part that really inspired my career. Is there was a young man in his 30s, and he lived about 2 miles from the bridge. And the psychiatrist on the suicide prevention committee showed up at his apartment, and there was a note on the table when they walked in, and it said, "I'm walking to the bridge. If one person smiles at me, I won't jump."
The big question is this: how do we take a seemingly ordinary world and make it beyond extraordinary? In yoga, there is so much more than meets the eye, and it's not just the things we do on our yoga mats that make the biggest difference. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Austin Bitsis, and welcome to Life as a Secret Yogi. Hello and welcome everybody to Life as a Secret Yogi. This is your host, Austin Bitsis, and today we got a really special episode, and I don't play favorites, but this particular episode and guest, I've been following his work for a while now, and his photography really found this deep connection within myself, and his name is Robert Sturman. There are a lot of really thoughtful takeaways from this episode, so you won't want to miss any of it, and you'll want to listen to it start to finish. However, before we dive in, I wanted to reflect on a portion of the discussion Robert and I speak about specifically, but we touched upon this key principle that people just want to be seen. People want to be loved. People want to be recognized. So I'd like to utilize the Secret Yogi Society platform to call upon you listening to simply smile. Say hello, make eye contact, and recognize those around you. If it is in the elevator, walking down the street, at the store, or going for a run, it really doesn't matter. Take out your headphones, put down your phone, and recognize those around you. You never know the difference it can make in someone's life. Even if you live in New York or New Jersey like myself, you'll get ignored at 9 out of 10 people, and that's pretty conservative. It is that 10th person, though. It's that 10th time that you might just have the greatest impact on someone's day, on someone's life, on someone else's life. Something I always say is our actions are contagious and therefore our thoughts are contagious. So make them good ones. A simple smile, or if you're wearing a mask, a simple hello and a soft smile with the eyes, or even smiling through the phone, can shift someone's thoughts and therefore switch their actions, which can have a compounding effect on all those they come in contact with. And this chain reaction happens, it only takes a brief moment of our time and our energy, and you don't even know who you might impact in a positive way. In turn, it will most likely make us feel better, as well as boosting our feelings of connectedness with the world around us. So it's a win-win for everybody. Doing this is connecting with your true self. Doing this is embodying your secret yogi. Doing this is what yoga's all about. So I call upon all of you to simply smile and recognize and love those around you. Now it's time for a section coined by my good friend, an amazing ultramarathoner, Tyler Wolf, called I Wish I Was Sponsored By. So today's episode is brought to you by Vivo Barefoot, and they're doing an amazing job supporting the movement and yoga community by coming out with stylish minimalist shoes. And beyond minimalist footwear, I'm a fan of minimal products. So do something good for your feet and for your mind by donating your other 30 pairs of shoes that are most likely not allowing your feet to function properly to their full potential and authentic potential, and buy yourself a single pair of shoes you can use anywhere. It makes choosing out a pair of shoes in the morning or going for that run or walk very easy. If you're the first time ordering, I have a special deal for you in which you could save $30 off your first order of $130 or more, which is greater than the 10% listed on the site. Just make sure to use the affiliate link below and the promo code AustinBitsis at checkout. So check them out at vivobarefoot.com. And as always, you don't have to, but of course, if you use the affiliate link in the show notes below, it would be greatly appreciated, as all the proceeds go directly back into supporting this show and the Secret Yogi Society community. So without further ado, enjoy this amazing episode with Robert Sturman. So for everybody listening right now, we got photographer Robert Sturman. He's a dedicated yoga practitioner, and Robert Sturman focuses on utilizing the language of yoga asana to evolve humanity in a more positive direction. Some of his honors have been he's been the official artist of the 47th Annual Grammy Awards, America's representing artist in the 2010 FIFA World Cup, official artist for the 2008 United States Olympics, and also you have been featured in multiple New York Times articles for your yoga photographs. You have a diverse set of photographs from yogis doing amazing poses in beautiful backdrops, from yogis perched on rocks surrounded by the Pacific Ocean to Africa orphans practicing yoga in Kenya. And you have much, much more. You have a diverse portfolio of different guests, and we could talk more about that. Let's just start off with one of your quotes. I am confident that photographs are one of the greatest influences on our planet. They truly have the potential to involve humanity in a more positive direction and change the world. When I realized this, there was no turning back. Let's talk about your story to discovering yoga and starting this mystical journey, as I like to call it, of photography and sharing your message.
Vast, Austin. So vast. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always an honor and a privilege when somebody's interested in my work, and to be a living artist with an audience. I'll never take that for granted. So thank you for having me here.
I appreciate that.
And as far as your question, I think it's multiple questions actually, but first that quote, and this has to do with the first time I ever went into a prison, is I noticed that it did not matter that I had a camera with me. What mattered was that it was the act of paying attention to somebody and reflecting back to them that they're okay, that they're worthy of being seen. And I noticed that it really didn't matter if I had my camera with me, because that was the gift right there. And I noticed that it didn't matter if I was working with somebody who was serving a life sentence, or I was working with someone who frequented the covers of magazines, that everybody was the same. And the core of it, the root desire, was to be acknowledged and to be seen as a human being. And that was the first thing that I learned in the prison. But the second thing that I learned was that photographs can change the world. And I realized that because when I first started to photograph in the prison system, not a lot of people knew that yoga was going on. And not a lot of yoga was going on in the prison system. This was 10 years ago. And what happens is when people start to see an idea, and the idea is a great idea, like for instance, people practicing yoga in a prison, or the military practicing yoga. And what happens is if they see it enough, it starts to become part of the culture. And if they see it and they can feel it on an emotional level, they remember it. And if that happens enough, it normalizes it. So when I realized that, I knew that the camera was this extraordinary tool that I could use to help evolve humanity in a positive direction.
When you first started, was your photography of yoga, or did this something you found later on to kind of share in that language?
No, I was, when I first started photography, I was 14 years old, and I don't think I took my first yoga picture until I was in my 30s. So yeah, yoga was, it didn't happen for a long time.
Would you say you kind of found your journey throughout there, and what we kind of coin as like your purpose or your dharma through photography, or when you finally connected that with the language of yoga?
I would definitely say that yoga absolutely helped me to settle down and stabilize and be more grounded and a healthier human being. And for me, it was really finding yoga was, it all happened together. I grew up in Los Angeles where yoga was a very normal thing to do. So when I was growing up, I had always known that it was something that people would do to become more relaxed, filled with more wisdom. It had all these ideas and fantasies about it that I had no idea was true. But I realized that I was an artist, and my heroes in the history of art lived these crazy lives of desperation and self-destruction. And so there was a moment in time where I really realized that I didn't want that life. And I wanted to rewrite that story of what it meant to be an artist. And I never went down deeply, dark, truly dark roads, but I saw my friends, my heroes did, and then it occurred to me that I could do this thing called yoga and meditation, and maybe it could help me be a more stable, better human being, and it worked.
Yeah, and
Bottom line, it worked.
um, yeah, and I think you've seen that in a lot of people of your subjects that you've photographed, I'm sure too. And what really makes an like you used the word extraordinary too, like a seemingly ordinary world extraordinary through art and yoga. Are there any like particular stories on your subjects that really stood out and kind of portrayed this message?
Well, one of them, bringing back to what I was just talking about the first time I ever visited a prison. I was very nervous because I had been ideologically conditioned to believe that it was the most dangerous place in the world, and I was definitely going to deal with something crazy, which because I had been watching too many documentaries, so I went in there with some fear. I photographed the class, and then the warden asked me if I'd like to work with any individuals. And there were a couple of people, but this one guy had a very beautiful practice, and I just connected with him. He was an African American gentleman, and so I said I'd like to work with him. His name was LP. That was his nickname, or the tattoo across his chest, at least. And so we worked together throughout the prison. And after about an hour, I mean, we did the most amazing photographs of him meditating in the cell block. It was extraordinary. And then when we were finishing up, he looked at me and he said, "Damn, I want to do that." And I thought, what? So I asked him, what do you want to do? And he said, "I want to be a yoga model." So I was like, "You are a yoga model." And so, but I went back there 3 months later, and I'd been to that same prison about 4 times after that. But the next time I went back, I brought a copy of Yoga Journal, and there was a full spread of the work that we did together.
Wow, that's
So that
great.
was a very cool story.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And kind of going back to what you were talking about of people just wanting to be seen, actually, a question I had for you that I was going to save to the end. We were emailing back and forth, and I was doing some research on yourself and checking out more of your work in depth. And I noticed this kind of concept of like wanting to be seen pop up a lot. And I was watching a movie. I don't know if you've watched it before on Netflix. It's called Sergio. It's about based on the true account of the UN diplomat Sergio Vieira de Mello. I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but it beautifully kind of portrays this message. So he goes into this.
Brazilian?
Yeah, Vieira de Mello, and he's a UN diplomat, and it's based on the true account. And he basically goes into this shop where they're making some type of clothing or fabric, and this older woman who really lost her whole family. She had nothing left. And he goes up to her and kind of just speaks with her, sits with her, and she asks her, like, kind of, what do you want? And she says, and I quote, "I want to go up in the sky and become a cloud, then travel through the sky to the place where I was born. And when I get there, fall like rain, then stay forever on my soil on my land. And Sergio says, I completely understand what you want, as he kind of like sheds a tear. And the older woman's response is, so tell the world to see us the way we are. We want to be seen, all of us. And Sergio says, you want to be seen, and kind of gives her a big hug. And I don't know if you watched this movie or seen this scene, but
I
I
wrote it
believe
down. I'm
this,
gonna watch it.
yeah, I think it came out earlier this year. And I believe this has such like a deep meaning, and people want to feel like the frequency of love. They want to give out lovingness and kindness and gratitude, and also feel this kindness, lovingness, and gratitude. And people just want to be seen. And I think through photography and some of the messages and the words you were saying, that this is kind of the same conclusion that you came to. And I don't know what your thoughts on that is.
100%. People want to be seen, and just acknowledge that they exist, especially now with people having to, I mean, I guess a lot of the world is coming out of seclusion, but it's important to look people in the eyes and acknowledge their humanity. And there was a great lesson that I did learn when I was much younger. I read an article in the New Yorker, and it was called Jumpers, and it was about all of the people that survived jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a fascinating article because every single person that they interviewed that jumped off regretted jumping the whole time. All the people that survived, obviously. And then there were people that jumped more than once that survived, and they regretted it both times, like really regretted it the whole way down. I mean, and you can imagine all the people that jumped that didn't survive, that probably regretted it on the way down. But coming back to being seen, this is the part that really inspired my career. Is there was a young man in his 30s, and he lived about 2 miles from the bridge. And the coroner and the psychiatrist on the suicide prevention committee showed up at his apartment when they were called. And there was a note on the table when they walked in. And it said, I'm walking to the bridge. If one person smiles at me, I won't jump. So obviously, if the coroner was there, he jumped. So
Yeah.
that story really, really inspired how important it is to just be acknowledged, to smile. And that
Yeah.
camera, that phone that we have, it's like, there's a lot of negativity with the addiction and everything, but if we can think about the positive thing that we can use that camera in there to consistently pay attention and to show up for people and reflect back to them that they are beautiful, that they belong here. The camera, that's what it is.
That's beautifully put. And on I've kind of like two things to say about that, where it's one, in terms of being on camera, in terms of kind of putting yourself out there. I was always against social media. I was always against putting myself out there. Anytime I started a company, I wanted nobody to be seen. I'm like, what pen name can I come up with? Like, Austin Bits is my real name, and I knew I had to kind of come over that because I knew I could connect with so many amazing people, and I knew also that I could put out such positive energy. And you know what, some people will take that in a positive way, and you know what, there'll always be people that dislike whatever you put out there. But at the same time, it's so important that we look at the positives, like social media and video and photography, and putting yourself out there. You have so much amazing power and connection. And when you look at it in that optimistic view and you look at the beauty in it.
Absolutely. And we have to train ourselves. It's like a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, how can we look at this as a wonderful thing?
Yeah, and I totally had this like mental shift a few years ago. And just recently, actually, when I started this podcast and I was thinking of kind of like the next work that I really wanted to do, and I really wanted to do something that was super meaningful to me and something that I would want to do no matter what. And I really wanted to spread this message. And yeah, and also kind of get out of my comfort zone and switch that self-limiting belief that there is good in this. And yeah, and the second thing off that, where it's just like on the street smiling, and this is kind of related, where it's just acknowledging people. I used to run, well, I still run a lot, and I used to be a collegiate runner, so I used to run everywhere, and I used to travel around the country running. And when I went to different cities and towns and ran, you could really kind of feel out that town or that city by, you notice that a lot of people in certain towns or cities will just smile and say hello. And I know in this like virtual reality right now, living in Jersey City, right outside New York City, I feel like we are almost disconnected even outside, because we still pass people in walking and distance. And when people are not wearing a mask outside, I feel like people are not even acknowledging each other. And that's kind of a sad reality, where it's just like, you never know what that simple smile will do. And in that case, it could have saved somebody's life, or in the future it could. You never know how just recognizing somebody to be seen can have such a like impactful impact.
So when you run, do you run with a mask?
No, no, I'm actually not a big fan of the masks. I don't like. I'm not, unless I have to wear them in the in
In the
the
store,
stores.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but no, I mean, I still run, and that's one thing that I always make a point, is whenever I pass somebody in the city, it's a little hard because there's so many different people you're passing. But like when I'm running kind of in more like suburban streets, I always just make eye contact, smile, and say hello. And
right,
that's like that simple thing is just like, sometimes just most of the time you honestly get blatantly ignored, especially in New York and New Jersey.
right, yeah, yeah.
If you could- but but yeah, you never know whose day it's gonna make.
But
Like,
you know the fact that all we can read on a human being now, besides the whole body, but in the face is the eyes and
mhm.
maybe the forehead. I don't know, but for me, what's changing is I'm forced to really study people's eyes, which is
Yeah.
such a cool thing. It's a good muscle to build.
Yeah, it's true. You could tell so much by somebody's eyes, and kind of making that eye contact, and even on a video call, you could do that as well, and just kind of recognizing and not being distracted. But you've traveled around the world. I mean, right now you're quarantined, you're home, but what are some of the biggest takeaways from the work you've done, traveled around, and any particular beliefs that have changed over the years from your work?
What a tough question.
I always like to ask that, because sometimes I feel that when you ask, like, are there any particular beliefs that have changed? Like, some people usually have this epiphany. And
Yeah,
not always, but it's like that you come to this epiphany, like, wow, like, I thought this, like my epiphany to social media. I thought social media was bad and I wanted to avoid it. And I had this epiphany where I came to realize, hey, it actually, look at all this good it's done, and kind of just
yeah.
focusing on that. That was my epiphany. So I always like to ask, like, what are people's basically epiphanies?
Well, when it comes to being a yoga photographer, like I'm realizing that I never was a yoga photographer or a yoga pose photographer. I enjoy photographing a lot of the poses, the heart opening, reaching poses, because it provided me with an alphabet, a language that I could tell an incredibly profound story about humanity in pursuit of being our best. And I think that I'm going to go with an epiphany that I've had right now because I'm in it right now. And as soon as the coronavirus occurred, I started to photograph people on the front lines, essential workers in service. And I know that I've been gradually leaning more and more towards that humanitarian aspect in my work, still using yoga, the poetry of yoga, the language of yoga to tell that story. But when that happened, I was able to really simplify it and do a whole series where people were just in their hands were in prayer. And to me, that I realized something that I'd always like, because so much of the yoga industry is very showy, narcissistic, and show off type of imagery, and so that actually repelled me away from that. But and then as soon as the Black Lives Matter movement started to occur, and there was been an uprising, especially for in cities, and I'm right in Los Angeles. And when that happened, I just have no desire to photograph asana and pretty pictures. And it's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. That was training me to really focus on humanity's pursuit for a greater existence. And so I think that the epiphany is that the bottom line is caring about life.
Yeah.
That's it, right there. Just caring about being our best.
I like that. Just caring about life. And so I've been collaborating with Liz Corwin, as you know, she's a really good friend, and she was a guest on this show on episode 3 for everyone who wants to check out her episode. It was an amazing episode.
It is
Episode
amazing.
3. Oh, you got to listen to it? Yeah. Episode 3 was the interview. And episode 4, I don't know if you got to check that out too, was her meditation. So that was her guided meditation. So definitely for everyone listening, check those episodes out after this. And we've been collaborating. I asked her, like, what questions do you have for Robert Sturman?
I am so nervous. She texted me.
Yeah, so she came up with a few questions. A couple of them I had also for yourself. And the first one we both had was, what inspires you? And as she puts it, what fills your bucket so that you keep creating?
Just a love for life. You know, that's really the bottom line. I love life. And so there's always something to, because that's what an artist, to me, what an artist is, it's just like a little kid that's just like, hey, look at this. It's amazing. Can you see it? Can you see it? So just being in love with life is there's constant inspiration. And I've never had artist block, writers, none of that, and that's where the yoga comes in, is make yourself right inside, and then everything on the outside will flow. And having clarity within and love within and relaxation within, I'm able to wake up and see the beauty of existence and want to photograph it and share it with everybody.
And for the pure art of it. And that's something for myself that in this podcast too, where it's like I'm torn between this like digital marketer side of me and this wanting to be kind of an artist side of it. And when I was thinking about like how am I going to approach this podcast, I wanted to take it more into the artist approach, where it's like I wanted to really connect and do it for the authenticity of it. And it's something like yourself where it's like if you just do it for the love of it, it's like you never run out of ideas, and it just works itself out, and you connect with the people that truly need to be and want to be connected.
Absolutely. But for guys like us, I think the yoga of it is to find the meeting, the way they can live together. For you, the digital marketing, in collaboration with your heart and your sincerity. So I think that's the real challenge for us, is to be able to allow both to live together and exist together and flourish together.
Yeah, that fusion of, and that's another one of the reasons I like taking it at scale. Like I could have just tried to teach around our community, and that's something that I'm doing and I'm going to try to do. But at the same time, like taking it at scale, like what skill sets do I have that I could really take this and influence more people in a positive direction, hopefully have a positive impact on their lives, just like you've done with photography, and kind of taking your skill set and fusing that with your meaning for life and wanting to make a positive impact and helping more people. So question 2. Have you ever been so awestruck you forgot to snap a picture? And this is fully Liz's question. So awestruck you forgot to snap a picture.
I think I pretended that I was, just because it sounds so cool. Like I had to put my camera down because what I was seeing was so incredible. I didn't want to miss anything. But No. The answer is I've been so awestruck, but I've always snapped the picture. I've been awestruck by Lieutenant Commander Elizabeth Corwin.
Yeah, she has some amazing photographs. Yeah, for everyone listening, those are some of the photographs we used on our Instagram page to feature Liz's episode.
Yeah.
Where's your work? And so, question 3: what do you most hope or wish to capture with your pictures about humanity? This is another one of Liz's.
Humanity's great pursuit to be our best, to reach towards excellence, to reach towards, like you see it in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, just reaching towards the divine, knowing that we can be better, whether it's, photographing police officers. And that's why yoga is so important to me, because people that choose to do yoga have chosen to open and to enlighten themselves and to become awake and aware and to live a better life and to do something from the inside out. So that's what I'm looking for. That's it. That's everything right there. Humanity in pursuit of excellence, whether it's breast cancer survivors, Maasai warriors at the foothills of Kilimanjaro, police officers, Air Force, Navy, firefighters, school teachers, carpenters, electricians, house painters, artists.
They're all embodying their secret yogis, as I like to call it. And you actually emailed me a quote, and it said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I saw him free," Michelangelo. And I don't know if that kind of portrays what you were saying just there, but like kind of working from the inside out.
Absolutely, because, and that's that for me, with that quote, with what I just said, it's about the angel, the marble is humanity. And so I don't tell a story about a fantasy world. Like, I find these police officers that really believe in equality and being officers of the peace, and they do their work and they meditate. And for me, that's something that I want to focus on, because the more we focus on what's happening right here, the beauty, and we water it, the more it has potential to blossom and grow into just a whole vast garden.
I like that. I like how you visualized in my mind. And just to kind of diverge from the questions for a second, I had another question, and it was, what forms of practice do you seem to be the most effective, and that you kind of see between all these different people, like you mentioned, the police officer, the carpenter, the individual that might be in prison, the veteran. Like, what kind of practices do you see as a commonality between all of them?
Definitely yoga and meditation. But I also think there's something to be said about the community that they've been welcomed into. So that's important too. But one of the newer ones that I'm seeing more of, and that I am also a part of or been immersed in, is sitting in the ice. Because I've dealt with a lot of military people that's how they heal their post-traumatic stress, and police officers that do it. And it's the Wim Hof method, and it's a way to rewire the nervous system. This is like science. It's not just an airy-fairy thing. And for me, I had a very low level of depression that always just, it wasn't from my mind. It was just a cellular thing. And so I heard Wim Hof speak, and I've never been one of those people that subscribes to anything or does this or that or this fad. So I heard him speak, and he spoke about his wife that committed suicide and the depression that he had, and very real human things. And then he talked about how he was drawn to just being in the ice and doing breath work. And right after I saw that talk, heard that talk, I went the next day and I bought a flat chest freezer, because my cop friends and military friends had been trying to get me to do it for quite some time, but I just always thought, like, why would I want to be cold? I'm perfectly comfortable with a warm shower, you know? And so after I heard that talk, I bought that and I started right away. And I did it for a year. Just did it because I wanted something better. I wanted to change something. I knew something wasn't right, that I had to rewire. And like I said, I've never been into doing anything, but I was very pulled to that. And I have to tell you that it changed my life completely.
Yeah. And what were some of those feelings that you had that you felt before that were able to kind of relieve itself? And I think it's important also to note for listeners where it's like yoga as the practice of asana and the physical benefits of yoga kind of help us peel off those physical sensations. And that's just one form, and it's a structured form that helps us do it. But there's so many different things, like you were just saying, like the ice bath
Yeah,
that help you do it. It might be a diet. Um, and then there's,
absolutely.
yeah, and there's so many different factors. And that's kind of where the fusion between yoga and Ayurveda and there's other methods where yoga is this ever evolving thing to what the teacher does. And you could say Wim Hof is a yogi in himself because he came up with, hey, this is the best method. And I know he also uses a lot of techniques that they use in like some of these strong breathing techniques that they use in yoga. And he also does practice yoga. And he's found like, hey, this is the method that works for the students that I've taught. And he's the scientist in that sense. He's the teacher and the scientist, always testing it out. And I think that's important to note that it doesn't have to fit this tradition of like it's a 60-minute vinyasa hatha class or
Not
yeah.
at all. You don't need to touch your toes to feel good inside. And
Hmm.
feeling good and it relaxed in your body is the bottom line.
Hmm.
Feeling at home inside of you. So if the asanas help you to do that, great. But I know a lot of people that can't do asana, and they live a very yogic life at home within themselves. So whatever works, whether it's knitting, sitting in the ice, reading, whatever it is, running, meditation, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you feel nourished.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the practice of the mind and the
Yeah.
body, and whatever practice that is that you're doing consistently that helps you peel away those layers to get to your true source. So let's dive into question 4.
The
So this,
commander?
yeah, from the commander, Liz
All right.
Corwin herself. So, who would you love to take a picture of, alive or deceased, and or deceased?
Well, since she's asking, her. I would absolutely love to. I don't think I photographed her for about a year. And every time that we work together, she brings something so profound to the table. And we just create something truly magical. So the answer to that question, 100%, and hopefully alive for a long time, Lieutenant Commander Elizabeth Corwin.
She's definitely somebody that that has a good spirit, and I'm grateful to be able to have connected with her. But she's going to say, "Who else?" So I know she's probably thinking if she was listening right now, she's going to be like, "Okay, me, but who else?" So is there anybody else that you would like to besides Liz Corwin?
You,
Me. Okay.
yeah, you're in front of me, of course. I would love to do a portrait of you.
Appreciate that. Actually, I haven't. I've never gotten a official photo shoot before. Like I said, I've
Those are
always
my
stayed away
favorite,
from the camera. But
as I have too, and that's my favorite type of subject are the camera shy ones like myself, because we get to make something that really celebrates, like, you know, the great practice of having a camera and doing what I do is when the camera's in my hand, and now it doesn't matter if it's in my hand or not, but I'm searching for the light in people, and because that's what I want to capture. What's the point of showing someone their dark side or where they need, I don't need to do that. I want to search for what's really working inside of them so that they can see that and step more into that. So you're definitely my favorite type of subject because I could portray you as a god, and then you
Like
could
that.
go on for the rest of your life feeling very, very good, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, it does, and it makes people feel seen and feel good, and like, of course, that'd be amazing. And I actually recently got a camera, started getting into photography. I haven't really used it too much. Yeah, with that kind of message of just like capturing the moment. Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have some questions and about
Anytime.
photography. Yeah.
Seriously, it keeps me on my toes.
All right. Yeah, definitely. And so we'll go on to question 5. So question 5, what is your growing edge? What are your newest interests, and where are you currently a new student with your art? So I know you said you recently switched over to filming the frontline
Yeah.
responders.
Well, when I was in high school, I started photography, and there were war photographers that really inspired me. Um, Eugene Smith, Robert Capa, and my teacher was. I did an apprenticeship with a master photographer in 1990, and he photographed the civil rights movement in the South and walked with Martin Luther King Jr. And so when I saw those portfolios of his, I was very inspired. And it looked like something that was from, you know, a long time ago. It was the past. This is done. Oh, it was an amazing time in history that he captured, but it was something of the past. And then when all this started happening in this country and started being videotaped for people to see what's going on, and then for all the protests to begin occurring, and it occurring right outside of my front door, it caught me off guard. But I realized that this is the greatest moment of my career, that this is a moment where something of absolute essential importance is occurring, and I want to be there. And I wasn't trained as a photojournalist, but I always wanted to be. I always had a longing to be. And so, I immediately made myself a press pass, and I just started to watch documentaries, and I started to go out there, and it caught me off guard. I had a couple of days where it knocked me on my ass, but then I realized I knew I had to show up for it, because this is something that I wholeheartedly believe in, is equality. And it's so irrational and absurd to me that human beings can be taken from another continent 400 years ago to build a country, and that, first of all, and then to still be fighting for equality. And to me, that it's absurd. And so this is the greatest moment, and there's nothing more important. And I might be accused or looked down upon at first for straying from yoga, but back to what we were saying about yoga, all that meditation and tapping in and finding stillness and developing kindness. This is what it was for. It was for whatever I learned on the mat to go out in the world and to do what really needs to be done. So even though it took a moment to become good at it, and I'm not affiliated with any major publications, I'm just doing it as an artist in service to humanity. It's new to me, but it's so important that I don't care. It's the most exciting time of my career, and this really matters. This is about life. This is about history. This is about evolution. This is about humanity. This is about doing what's right.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I've been following your work, and I'll continue to see kind of where you take this journey. And I think it's amazing that what you're doing. And that concludes the commander in chief questions. And she'll be really excited that we hit each and every one. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your artistic process. Is it something you kind of meditate or do yoga or interview your subjects to capture their story in just really like a single photograph?
That's a great question. I'm going to tell you what I do, Austin. I do exactly what you do. I'm interested. It's what you're doing is very challenging. I want your listeners to know this. Being a podcaster is one of the hardest things you can do because you have to really truly pay attention and you have to connect with your guest. And even though you're thinking about what's the next question, what's the next, and all that, you have to have a fluid, natural conversation. But ultimately, the bottom line is that you're interested, you care. And that's the formula. That's the secret ingredient to what I do with my subjects. I care. I want to know who they are. I'm interested. And that's how it all starts. It's a human thing. It's a human connection. You could follow all the rules about podcasting, but it's because I know that you're a cool guy, you're interested, you're humble, and you just have something about you. You have that, that you're interested and you care. And that's the secret ingredient. Of course, you need to know the language and how to structure your podcast. And like, I need to know a few f-stops, and if I'm not going to put it on automatic, but it's that's the one thing that can't be taught, that you have to have that light. And that's the yoga right there. That's the light. That's the thing that's going to sustain you. It's not about finishing first. It's about finishing. And if you have that ingredient and just relax with it and be authentic and sincere, then it's going to carry you through all the way. Nice guys don't necessarily finish last.
Yeah, and I never really thought about it that way. And I guess now reflecting back on it, that's honestly why I created this podcast. I mean, one, I was interested, like you said, and I was really fascinated. And I get excited, like when we started talking, I knew your work, I knew what you're about. This Corwin told me a lot about yourself, and I was truly excited. I was excited to have you on the show, and I looked forward to it. Same thing with Liz Corwin and a lot of our other guests, and those were some of the best interviews. The ones where I was just like, I had a few questions, but like honestly, it just kind of I had endless questions. Like we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
And the other thing was just like putting yourself out there and kind of finding your voice, and you really connecting with other people that you're interested in and you're inspired by really helps you not only find your voice, but really kind of find your purpose and be inspired to spread that message. And is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon for the audience now that you know who the Secret Yogi Society audience is and a little bit about myself? Was there anything else you wanted to touch on within your work? Anything you're planning into working on in the future? I know there's an uncertain future, but
Gosh, yeah, we really are in an uncertain future. It's amazing. It's exciting, actually. It doesn't scare me, but it's definitely uncertain. I mean, the only thing is really more than anything, like the only thing you really, I always knew this mentally and logically, but I didn't really get it until we really were faced with something that none of us have ever been faced in our lifetime. And that's with like a real deep uncertainty and just the whole thing turned to shit and whatever it is. I think that the greatest thing I learned is truly that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to, and that's really all yoga is to me. It's the self-respect, the self-love. It's the taking the time to acknowledge that you are walking through this life and you need to have your shit together. And however you can do that, whether it's the ice for me or yoga practice or running or therapy or whatever it is, meditation, breathing, it doesn't matter. But whatever you know in your wisdom self, in your heart, what really nourishes you and takes care of you. That's such an important thing to just have a daily practice with, so that you can always be at home inside yourself and like being there. That's the bottom line.
I know when I came across that epiphany that we're all oneness, we're all one, and I just had this like like I said, like this epiphany that at the core, like when you peel away all those layers of self, of like the subtle physical sensations, the feelings, the emotions, the ego, you peel it away and you're just, it's like the old metaphor of the onion. You peel away the onion and what is left? Nothing. It's just energy. And that's the same thing with humans and any living creature. And when you do that, you realize that, hey, those things that were wrapping around me, you become aware of them, those feelings, those thoughts, and you realize those impact my actions. And my actions are contagious because we're all one, we're all connected in this energy. And it just like clicked for me. I'm a very visual person and I have to come to these rationales myself. And of course, a lot of people are like that too. And that was my epiphany. And I'm just like, our actions are contagious. So make them good ones.
Beautiful.
And for all the listeners who want to find out more about yourself, you have your website with your portfolios on there, robertsturmanstudio.com. You could also follow your work and daily inspiration on your Instagram, Robert Sturman, on your Facebook, artist.photography. Is that right?
Yeah, you can just type in my name and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, Robert Sturman. And we'll have all this in the show notes. And all the links to this also are at www.robertsturmanstudio.com. And also, we're going to put together a YouTube video with some of his work. If you like to listen to this episode also on YouTube, we'll kind of have a slideshow of some of the work that Robert's done. And it's amazing work. And you really want to check it out. So you want to check out his website. Robert, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Hope you, after this quarantine, you come to New York soon and we connect.
I definitely will. We're going to go to go surfing together. All right, brother. Thank you for taking the time. That was nice.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, bro.
All right, take care.
Okay, my man.
Thank you all so much for being here. I am truly grateful for your time, and all of you have taken part in the Secret Yogi Society to make life beautiful through bringing together a community of like-minded individuals to go about life's journey together. I appreciate you all that have left a rating and review in whichever platform you're listening to this episode right now. So if you haven't left a rating or review thus far, if you could please do so. Your reviews help push this show further and in turn directly support all those who have joined the Secret Yogi Society. For more information on the Secret Yogi Society, check out our hub, which is www.secretyogisociety.com. From there, you can find all the links to our Facebook group where we are constantly supporting each other as a community and discussing the latest episodes, our Instagram, where we have short, thoughtful quotes and reflections from recent guests, and finally, our newsletter, which is a list of upcoming events, free live yoga classes, and meditations, and a lot more. So all this will be in the show notes below, and have an amazing day. Namaste.